She opened the door. 20 minutes later, she was dead. This is Jennifer Hayes, 43 years old, a registered nurse from Columbus, Ohio. In June 2019, she took her 19-year-old daughter Madison on what should have been the trip of a lifetime to Cancun, Mexico. It became a nightmare neither of them could have imagined. In the coming minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened inside room 214 at the Sunset Paradise Resort. The evidence that led investigators to the killer. The daughter's testimony that shattered a courtroom. And the hotel's secret. A secret that management desperately tried to hide. But first, you need to understand who Jennifer Hayes really was. Jennifer Hayes wasn't just a mother. She was a fighter. Born and raised in rural Ohio, she'd worked as a registered nurse at Riverside Methodist Hospital for 22 years. The overnight shifts. The double shifts. The holidays spent at work while her daughter waited at home. She did it all alone after her divorce when Madison was just 7 years old. Her colleagues describe her as the kind of nurse who remembered every patient's name, who stayed late to hold the hand of someone dying alone, who brought homemade cookies to the nurse's station on her birthday instead of expecting gifts. But there was something Jennifer wanted more than anything, something she'd been saving for, quietly, patiently, for almost 3 years. A vacation, just her and Madison, somewhere warm, somewhere far from the cold Ohio winters and the exhausting hospital hallways, somewhere they could finally just be together, mother and daughter. No distractions, no work, no stress, just 7 days in paradise. In March 2019, Jennifer finally had enough saved. She booked a week at the Sunset Paradise Resort in Cancun. All-inclusive, oceanfront room, the works. It was supposed to be perfect. If you've ever worked yourself to the bone to give someone you love a moment of happiness, this will hit different. Madison Hayes had just finished her freshman year at Ohio State University. Pre-med, like her mother always hoped. At 19, she was at that age where daughters start to see their mothers not just as parents, but as people, friends, equals. And she knew how hard her mother had worked for this trip. Madison documented everything on social media. The packing, the drive to the airport, the countdown. She was genuinely excited, not just for the beaches and the resort, but for uninterrupted time with her mom. Quality time, the kind they'd rarely had since Madison left for college. On June 14th, 2019, Jennifer and Madison landed in Cancun. The temperature was 87 degrees. The sky was cloudless. Everything felt right. Madison posted a photo to Instagram at 2:47 p.m. on June 18th. Her mother's arm around her shoulder. Both of them smiling. The caption read, "Best week of my life with the best person I know." By 3:15 p.m., Madison would be screaming for help in a hotel hallway, and her mother would be gone. The Sunset Paradise Resort, a 3.5-star hotel on the Hotel Zone Strip in Cancun. Not luxury, but respectable, family-friendly, popular with American tourists looking for affordable all-inclusive packages. 240 rooms, 3 pools, direct beach access, and a reputation for being safe. Jennifer had read every review before booking. She'd checked the safety ratings. She'd Googled the neighborhood. She'd done everything a cautious single mother would do. And everything checked out. The hotel had good reviews. Families raved about it. It seemed perfect. Room 214. Second floor. 2 queen beds. Balcony overlooking the pool. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. Jennifer and Madison checked in on Friday, June 14th at 4:30 p.m. They had 7 nights booked. For 4 days, everything went exactly as planned. They laid on the beach, swam in the ocean, ate too much at the buffet, watched the sunset with margaritas, virgin from Madison, very much not virgin for Jennifer. They laughed. They talked. They made memories. It was everything Jennifer had worked for, everything she dreamed about. But the Sunset Paradise Resort had something that wasn't listed in any brochure, something management knew about but chose to ignore, something that would cost Jennifer Hayes her life. Tuesday, June 18th, 2019, day 5 of their vacation. 2 days left before flying home. It started like every other morning, 8:15 a.m. Jennifer and Madison wake up. Room service breakfast on the balcony. coffee, and fresh fruit. Madison scrolls through photos from the past few days, deciding which ones to post. Jennifer journals, something she'd started doing on this trip, writing down every detail, every feeling, every moment she wanted to remember. 9:30 a.m. Beach. They claim 2 chairs under a palapa. Jennifer reads a romance novel she'd bought at the airport. Madison listens to music and works on her tan. Normal. Easy. Perfect. 12:45 p.m. Lunch at the poolside restaurant. Fish tacos and piña coladas. They decide to go back to the room to change into dry clothes before heading back out 1 p.m. They return to room 214. Both shower. Change. Madison wants to go back to the pool. Jennifer says she'll join her in a bit. She wants to take a quick nap first. The sun had worn her out. 1:15 p.m. Madison heads back to the pool alone. Jennifer stays in the room. She texts Madison, "Love you, sweet girl. Be down in an hour." 2 p.m. Jennifer wakes from her nap. She's hungry. She changes into a swimsuit and cover-up. Plans to meet Madison at the pool, maybe grab a snack from the bar. 2:30 p.m. Jennifer and Madison are together at the pool. They're laughing, making plans for their last 2 days. Maybe a snorkeling trip. Maybe just more of this. Pool time, drinks, each other's company. 2:45 p.m. Jennifer realizes she forgot her sunglasses in the room. She tells Madison she'll be right back. 15 minutes, tops. Madison offers to come with her. Jennifer waves her off. "Stay here, I'll be quick. Keep my spot warm." Madison watches her mother walk away. Through the pool deck, past the tiki bar, toward the hotel entrance. She watches until Jennifer disappears through the sliding glass doors. It's the last time Madison would see her mother alive. At 2:47 p.m., according to hotel security footage, Jennifer Hayes enters the lobby. She walks to the elevator, presses the button for the second floor. The doors close. 32 seconds later, she's in the hallway, walking toward room 214. She uses her key card. The light turns green. She pushes the door open. Jennifer Hayes steps into room 214 at exactly 2:47 p.m. and 38 seconds. In 18 minutes, she'll be dead. And the person who kills her? He's already in the hallway, just 30 feet away, watching, waiting, walking toward her. Door security footage. Tuesday, June 18th, 2019, 2:51 p.m. This is the second floor hallway of the Sunset Paradise Resort. Watch the left side of the screen. This man's name is Carlos Mendoza, 29 years old. He'd worked at the Sunset Paradise Resort for 8 months as a room attendant. His job was simple: clean rooms, restock supplies, be invisible, be professional, be trustworthy. Because guests, especially female guests traveling alone or with family, they had to feel safe. That was the whole point of a hotel. Safety, security, trust. Pause right here. Look at his face. Look at his body language. Would you have opened the door for this man? 3 knocks. Standard hotel protocol. If no one answers, housekeeping moves on. But someone does answer. At 2:51 p.m. and 42 seconds, the door to room 214 opens. Jennifer Hayes opens her door. She's holding her room key in one hand, sunglasses in the other. She just grabbed them from the dresser. She was about to leave, but Carlos tells her something. We don't have audio from this footage, but investigators would later piece together what he said. A routine maintenance check. Nothing unusual. Nothing threatening. It would take 2 minutes, he said. Jennifer steps aside. She lets him in. Why wouldn't she? He's staff. He has a card. He's in uniform. He has a name tag. This is his job. She has no reason to feel unsafe. The door closes at 2:52 p.m. For the next 13 minutes, there's no video, no audio, no witnesses. What happens next inside room 214 would only be known through forensic evidence, physical evidence, and eventually, Carlos Mendoza's own confession. What I'm about to tell you comes from police reports, forensic analysis, and the eventual confession of Carlos Mendoza. I'm not going to sensationalize this. I'm not going to give you graphic details, but you need to understand what happened. You need to know what Jennifer Hayes endured in her final moments, according to Carlos's confession. He entered the room under the pretense of checking the air conditioning unit. Jennifer stood near the door, watching waiting for him to finish so she could get back to her daughter. But Carlos didn't go to the AC unit. He went to the bathroom. He came out. He made a comment. Something inappropriate. Something sexual. Jennifer's demeanor changed immediately. She told him to leave. He didn't. She reached for her phone. He grabbed her wrist. Jennifer fought. The forensic evidence shows she fought hard. Defensive wounds on her hands and forearms. Skin under her fingernails that would later match Carlos's DNA. She scratched him. She tried to scream. He covered her mouth. She bit his hand. He hit her. She stumbled. He hit her again. At some point during the struggle, Carlos grabbed a lamp from the bedside table. Heavy. Ceramic. Solid. He struck Jennifer Hayes in the head. Once. Twice. 3 times. The coroner would later determine that the third blow is what killed her. Blunt force trauma to the skull. Catastrophic brain injury. She was likely unconscious before she hit the floor time of death. Estimated 3:05 p.m. Jennifer Hayes was 43 years old. She died in a hotel room in Cancun, Mexico, 2,000 miles from home, 2 days before she was supposed to fly back to her daughter, her job, her life. She died because she let a man in a uniform into her room. She died because she trusted the wrong person at the wrong time. And she died alone. But Jennifer Hayes wasn't alone at the resort. Her daughter was still at the pool, waiting for her mother to come back, wondering why she was taking so long. And that 15-minute errand? It was about to turn into every daughter's worst nightmare. 3:15 p.m. Madison Hayes checks her phone. Her mother left 30 minutes ago. Should have been back 25 minutes ago. Madison isn't worried yet. Not really. Maybe her mom got caught up talking to someone in the lobby. Maybe she decided to take another quick shower. Maybe she fell asleep again. It's a vacation. There's no rush. 3:17 p.m. Madison sends a text. No response. Another text. No response. She tries calling. Straight to voicemail. That's odd. Her mother always answers. Always. Especially on vacation when they're apart. 3:22 p.m. Madison decides to go check on her. Probably nothing. Probably her mom just left her phone in the room. But there's this feeling, this little whisper in the back of her mind that something isn't right. Mothers and daughters have that sometimes. That invisible thread. That instinct. Madison feels it now. 3:28 p.m. Madison reaches the second floor. Walks down the hallway toward room 214. Everything looks normal. Quiet. Just another Tuesday afternoon in a hotel hallway. But when Madison reaches the door, she notices something. The Do Not Disturb sign is hanging on the handle. Her mother never uses those signs. Never. Madison knocks. 3 times. No answer. She calls out, "Mom? You in there?" Nothing. She knocks again. Harder this time. "Mom, it's me. Open up." Still nothing. Now, the feeling in Madison's gut isn't a whisper anymore. It's a scream. 3:30 p.m. Madison uses her key card. The light turns green. She pushes the door. It opens 3 inches. Then stops. The security chain latch is engaged from the inside. The room is dark. The curtains are drawn. And there's a smell. Madison doesn't know how to describe it later in her testimony. Just wrong. The room smells wrong. Madison pushes her face to the gap in the door. "Mom?" "Mom." She can see into the room now. Not much. Just a slice of the interior. The corner of a bed. Part of the floor. And then she sees it. An arm. Pale. Motionless. Extending from behind the bed. Her mother's arm. Wearing the bracelet Madison had given her for Christmas. Madison would later tell investigators that she heard something in that moment. Through the gap in the door. From inside the room. A sound that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Breathing. Shallow. Ragged. But not her mother's breathing. Someone else. Someone else was in that room. 3:32 p.m. Madison runs. She doesn't walk. She doesn't think. She runs down the hallway, screaming for help. She finds a housekeeping cart 2 doors down. A woman. A real housekeeper. Madison grabs her, pulls her toward room 214, yelling words she can barely form. "My mom. Room. Help. Please. My mom." 3:35 p.m. The housekeeper calls security on her radio. Madison is pounding on the door now. Screaming. Crying. Other guests are opening their doors, looking out, confused. A man offers to help. He tries to shoulder the door open. The chain holds 3:37 p.m. Hotel security arrives. Two men. They have a master key. They open the door as far as the chain allows. One of them uses a tool to cut the chain. It takes 45 seconds. Madison is watching, shaking. The door swings open. I'm not going to describe what Madison Hayes saw when that door opened. You don't need those details. No one needs those details. What you need to know is this. Jennifer Hayes was found on the floor between the two beds. She was unresponsive. The room showed obvious signs of a struggle. Furniture overturned. Bedding disturbed. Blood. 3:38 p.m. Hotel security calls the Cancun Municipal Police. 3:42 p.m. An ambulance is dispatched. 3:45 p.m. Police arrive at the Sunset Paradise Resort. By 3:47 p.m., Room 214 is a crime scene. Jennifer Hayes is pronounced dead at 4:02 p.m. Madison Hayes is escorted to the lobby. She's in shock, unresponsive. A hotel manager tries to give her water. She doesn't drink it. She doesn't speak. She just stares at the elevator doors, waiting for her mother to step out, to tell her this is all a mistake, that she's fine, that everything's fine. But those elevator doors never open, not with her mother. Now, here's where this case takes a turn that investigators didn't expect. Because the person who murdered Jennifer Hayes, he didn't run. He didn't flee to some remote village or cross the border or disappear into the jungle. Carlos Mendoza was still at the hotel. In fact, he was still on clock, working his shift like nothing had happened. And he was about to make the biggest mistake of his life security footage. Same day, 3:08 p.m. Watch the service hallway on the east side of the building. That's Carlos Mendoza. He's leaving the second floor. Notice anything different about him? His uniform is gone. He's now wearing a black t-shirt and jeans. Street clothes. He kept them in his locker. He changed, washed his hands, splashed water on his face, fixed his hair, and then he went back to work. 3:12 p.m. Carlos is in the employee break room, eating his sandwich, scrolling through his phone. Calm, collected, normal. 3:25 p.m. He's back on the first floor, cleaning a room, going through his checklist, making beds, vacuuming carpets, like it's any other Tuesday. 3:34 p.m. He's in the hallway, talking to another housekeeper. They're laughing about something. 3:42 p.m. Carlos Mendoza walks through the main lobby of the Sunset Paradise Resort. His shift ends in 18 minutes. He's planning to clock out, go home, shower, maybe grab some dinner. He has no idea that police are currently 3 floors above him, processing a murder scene. He has no idea that hotel security is pulling footage right now. He has no idea that his face is about to be seen by every cop in Cancun. He has no idea that his life is over. 3:45 p.m. Cancun Municipal Police arrive. 12 officers. They immediately begin interviewing hotel staff. Who has access to the second floor? Who has master keys? Who is working today? Where's your housekeeping staff? The hotel manager pulls up the schedule, shows them the list, points to a photo on the employee board. Carlos Mendoza, room attendant, scheduled until 4 p.m. Last seen 20 minutes ago. 3:48 p.m. Police start searching the hotel. They have Carlos's photo. They have his description. They know he's here somewhere. They find his supervisor. Where's Carlos Mendoza? The supervisor radios. Carlos, come to the main office. No response. He tries again. Nothing. Carlos isn't answering his radio. 3:52 p.m. A security officer spots Carlos in the employee parking lot, walking toward an old Honda Civic, moving casually, unhurried. The security officer radios police. Target in the east parking lot. Blue shirt, black jeans, walking toward a gray Honda. 3:54 p.m. 3 police officers converge on the parking lot. Carlos has his keys out. He's 10 feet from his car. 5 feet. He reaches for the door handle. And then he hears it. Carlos Mendoza. Manos arriba. Hands up. He freezes. According to police reports, Carlos turned around slowly, made eye contact with the officers. And then he ran. He made it 30 yards. 3 officers tackled him near the parking lot exit. He hit the pavement hard. Didn't resist after that. Didn't fight. just went limp, like he knew it was over. Because it was. At 3:56 p.m., Carlos Mendoza was placed in handcuffs. At 3:57 p.m., he was read his rights. At 4:01 p.m., he was in the back of a police car. And at 4:15 p.m., he was sitting in an interrogation room at the Cancun police station, about to face everything he'd done. At 4:20 p.m., Madison Hayes was informed that police had arrested a suspect in her mother's murder. A hotel employee. She asked if they were sure, if they had the right person. They told her yes. They had video. They had evidence. They had him. Madison nodded, said okay, and then she collapsed. Just dropped, right there in the lobby. Because the reality of it all, the fact that this was real, that her mother was really gone, that some stranger had killed her, it hit her all at once. And she couldn't hold herself up anymore. Comment below. What sentence do you think Carlos Mendoza deserves? Within hours of Carlos Mendoza's arrest, investigators began piecing together what happened in room 214. And what they found painted a clear, undeniable picture of murder. The evidence against Carlos Mendoza was overwhelming. First, the security footage. Cameras captured him approaching room 214 at 2:51 p.m. Knocking. Jennifer Hayes opening the door. Carlos entering. The door closing. No one else comes or goes. At 3:08 p.m., the door opens again. Carlos exits. Alone. He's no longer wearing his uniform. That's 17 minutes. 17 minutes between entering and leaving. 17 minutes during which Jennifer Hayes was murdered. Second, the DNA evidence. Carlos's DNA was found on Jennifer's body, on her wrists, on her neck, under her fingernails. Investigators also found Jennifer's DNA on Carlos, specifically on his hands, his forearms, and his uniform shirt, which he'd stuffed into his employee locker. That shirt? Covered in blood spatter. Jennifer Hayes' blood. Third, the physical evidence from the crime scene. The lamp used to strike Jennifer Hayes was found on the floor, broken, covered in her blood and Carlos's fingerprints. The room showed clear signs of a struggle. Furniture overturned. A chair knocked over. Bedding pulled off the mattress. And then there was the security chain on the door. Remember how Madison couldn't get in because the chain was latched from the inside? Carlos did that. He locked Jennifer's body in that room, latched the chain so no one could easily enter, and then slipped out, closing the door behind him. It would lock automatically. He bought himself time. Time to change. Time to calm down. Time to pretend nothing happened. Fourth, Carlos's cleaning cart was found abandoned in a service stairwell. Not where it was supposed to be. Not in the housekeeping closet. Just left there. Like he'd been in a hurry. Like he'd panicked. Investigators processed that cart. Guess what they found? Jennifer Hayes' DNA. On the handle. On a towel. She grabbed it. During the struggle. Trying to fight him off. But here's the thing that made investigators' blood run cold. This evidence? It wasn't surprising. It wasn't shocking. Because when they dug into Carlos Mendoza's background, when they looked at his employment history, when they talked to his previous employers, they found something that should have prevented him from ever working at the Sunset Paradise Resort in the first place. Remember that hotel secret I mentioned? Carlos Mendoza was hired by the Sunset Paradise Resort in October 2018, 8 months before he murdered Jennifer Hayes. The hiring process for hotel staff, especially those who have access to guest rooms, is supposed to be thorough. Background checks, reference checks, criminal history review. It's not optional. It's mandatory, especially in Mexico, where hotels cater to foreign tourists who are supposed to feel safe. The hotel industry takes this seriously, or they're supposed to. But when investigators requested Carlos Mendoza's employment file from the Sunset Paradise Resort, they found something disturbing. His background check was incomplete. Not missing, incomplete. It had been started, but never finished. Red flags had been raised, but never followed up on. Why? Because the hotel was understaffed. They needed workers. And Carlos seemed fine. He interviewed well. He had experience. He had references. So they hired him. Before his background check cleared, before anyone bothered to dig deeper, if they had dug deeper, here's what they would have found. Carlos Mendoza had worked at another hotel in Playa del Carmen from 2016 to 2018. 2 years. He left that job under questionable circumstances. There was an allegation, a complaint from a female guest. She claimed Carlos had entered her room inappropriately, made her uncomfortable, touched her without consent. The hotel investigated. Carlos denied everything. The guest didn't want to press charges. She just wanted to leave. Forget about it. Move on. So the hotel settled with her quietly, gave her a refund, made her sign an NDA, and then they fired Carlos. No police report, no criminal record, just a quiet termination. And Carlos moved on to his next job. But here's the part that makes this case even more tragic, even more infuriating. Carlos Mendoza didn't just have a questionable history at his previous job. He had complaints at the Sunset Paradise Resort too. 2 complaints, both from female guests, both filed in the 3 months before Jennifer Hayes was murdered. March 2019, a 34-year-old woman from Texas reported that Carlos Mendoza had entered her room while she was showering. She'd hung the Do Not Disturb sign. She'd locked the deadbolt. But hotel staff have override keys. They can get in. Carlos claimed it was a mistake. He thought the room was empty. He apologized. The woman didn't pursue it further. She checked out 2 days early. The hotel comped her stay. And the complaint? Filed away. No investigation. No suspension. Nothing. May 2019. A 28-year-old woman from Canada reported that Carlos had made inappropriate comments to her in the hallway. Sexual in nature. Made her feel unsafe. She reported it to the front desk. The front desk manager spoke to Carlos. Carlos denied it, said it was a misunderstanding, a language barrier issue. The manager accepted his explanation, told him to be more careful. And again, the complaint was filed away. No real consequences. No pattern recognition. No one connecting the dots. In fact, there's an email from the hotel's HR director to the general manager dated June 10, 2019, 8 days before Jennifer Hayes was murdered. The subject line reads, "Concerns regarding C. Mendoza." The email details the 2 complaints, suggests that maybe they should consider reassigning Carlos to a different department, away from guest rooms. The general manager's response came 3 days later, June 13th, 1 day before Jennifer and Madison checked in. His response? Let's discuss after the summer rush. We're too short-staffed right now to make changes. Jennifer Hayes died because a hotel decided staffing shortages were more important than guest safety. She died because complaints were filed away instead of investigated. She died because a man with a history of inappropriate behavior toward women was given unlimited access to hotel rooms. She died because people knew something was wrong and chose to do nothing. When this information became public during the investigation, the outcry was immediate. Families who had stayed at the Sunset Paradise Resort came forward with their own stories. Women who'd felt uncomfortable around Carlos but hadn't reported it. Guests who'd witnessed strange behavior but assumed they were overreacting. Former employees who'd raised concerns but were ignored. The hotel tried to contain the damage. They released a statement expressing condolences to the Hayes family. They promised a full internal review. They suspended the general manager. But it was too late. The damage was done. And Jennifer Hayes was still dead. Within a week, Madison Hayes and her family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Sunset Paradise Resort, its parent company, and 3 members of hotel management. The lawsuit alleged negligence, failure to perform adequate background checks, and deliberate indifference to known safety risks. The hotel fought it. Initially, they had lawyers. They had insurance. They thought they could win. But as more evidence came out, as more former guests came forward, as the media coverage intensified, they realized they couldn't. They settled. The amount? Undisclosed. Sealed by the court. But sources close to the case suggest it was substantial. Millions. Not that any amount of money could bring Jennifer Hayes back. Not that Madison wanted money. She wanted accountability. She wanted change. She wanted to make sure this never happened to anyone else, and to her credit, she got it. The lawsuit led to sweeping policy changes, not just at the Sunset Paradise Resort, but across the Mexican hotel industry. Mandatory background checks, third-party verification, real-time complaint tracking. A centralized database, so hotels can't just shuffle problem employees from one property to another. It's not perfect, but it's better. It's Jennifer's legacy. A legacy built on her daughter's refusal to stay silent while Madison Hayes was collapsing in a hotel lobby and investigators were processing a crime scene. Carlos Mendoza was sitting in an interrogation room at the Cancun Municipal Police Station. He'd been read his rights. He'd been offered a lawyer. He declined, said he didn't need one, said he had nothing to hide. That should have been detectives' first clue that Carlos Mendoza was about to lie through his teeth. The interrogation began at 4:27 p.m. Two detectives, both experienced, both homicide. They knew what they were dealing with. They had the evidence. They had the timeline. They had him, but they wanted a confession. They wanted him to say it, to admit what he'd done. So they started slow, easy questions, non-threatening, building rapport. Tell us about your day, Carlos. What time did you start your shift? Which rooms did you clean? Did anything unusual happen? Carlos played it cool. At first, said his day was normal. Routine. Cleaned 12 rooms. No problems. No complaints. Everything fine. The detectives nodded. Took notes. Then they asked about room 214. Did you clean room 214 today, Carlos? Pause. Carlos shifted in his chair. No, that room wasn't on my list. Lie number 1, the detectives showed him the security footage. Carlos entering room 214. 2:51 p.m. There he is. Clear as day. That's you, right, Carlos? Long pause. Carlos stared at the screen. Then he changed his story. Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot. I did go to that room. The guest called the front desk. Said the AC wasn't working. I went to check it. Line number 2. There was no call to the front desk from room 214. Detectives knew that. They'd already checked the logs. But they didn't tell Carlos that. Not yet. They let him keep talking. Keep digging. So you went to check the AC? What happened then? Carlos shrugged. I checked it. It was fine. I left. Maybe 2 minutes. Line number 3. 17 minutes. Carlos was in that room for 17 minutes. Not 2. Detectives pointed this out. Showed him the timestamps. Entry, 2:51 p.m. Exit, 3:08 p.m. 17 minutes. So what were you doing for 17 minutes, Carlos? Another pause. Longer this time. You can see it in the transcript. The wheels turning. The panic setting in. Carlos tried a different approach. Okay, I was in there longer. But I was just cleaning. Tidying up. The guest was nice. We talked. She asked about Cancun. I gave her some recommendations. That's all. Line number 4. And the detectives? They were done playing. They laid it all out. The DNA evidence. Carlos's skin under Jennifer's fingernails. Her blood on his uniform. The lamp. The fingerprints. The cleaning cart. The security footage of him changing clothes. Running. Every piece. Every detail. They watched his face as they did it. Watch him realize there was no way out. No more lies. No more stories. They had him. And he knew it. 6 hours. That's how long Carlos held out. 6 hours of denial. 6 hours of excuses. 6 hours of detectives methodically dismantling every lie. Until finally, at 10:33 p.m., Carlos Mendoza broke. He put his head in his hands. He started crying. And he said 5 words that would seal his fate. I didn't mean to kill her. What followed was a full confession. Carlos admitted everything. He'd seen Jennifer Hayes at the pool earlier that day. Thought she was attractive. Watched her. Followed her routine. When he saw her return to her room alone, he made his move. The AC excuse was planned. Premeditated. He knew what he was going to do. He entered the room. Made his advance. Jennifer rejected him. He got angry. She threatened to report him. He panicked. Grab her. She fought. He hit her. She kept fighting. He grabbed the lamp. And then, he just kept hitting her. Until she stopped moving. Until it was over, the detectives asked him why. Why did he do it? Carlos's answer? She was going to ruin my life. She was going to get me fired. I couldn't let that happen. Not an ounce of remorse for Jennifer. No empathy for Madison. No understanding of what he'd taken from them. Just concern for himself. For his job. His life. His future. As if any of that mattered after what he'd done. At 11:47 p.m. on June 18th, 2019, Carlos Mendoza was formally charged with first-degree murder, sexual assault, and evidence tampering. He was denied bail. He was transferred to a maximum security facility to await trial, and he would never breathe free air again. While Carlos Mendoza was confessing in an interrogation room, Madison Hayes was living through a nightmare she'd never escape. The trauma of that day, finding her mother, hearing those sounds through the door, seeing what she saw when security finally opened it, it broke something inside her, something that no amount of time or therapy could fully repair. Madison was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder within a week of her mother's death. Severe PTSD. She couldn't sleep. When she did, she had nightmares. The same nightmare. Every night. She's back in that hallway, knocking on the door, her mother's arm on the floor, the breathing, the sounds. She wakes up screaming, drenched in sweat, disoriented, terrified. It happened every single night for months. She couldn't stay in hotels anymore. Even the thought of a hotel made her panic. Racing heart, shortness of breath, hyperventilating. She dropped out of Ohio State. Couldn't focus, couldn't function. Moved back home to Columbus. But home wasn't the same, because her mother wasn't there. The house was empty, full of memories, but empty of the one person who mattered. Madison spent most days in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying that day over and over, asking herself the questions that survivors always ask. What if I'd gone with her? What if I'd insisted? What if I called her 5 minutes earlier? What if? But here's what's remarkable about Madison Hayes. She didn't stay in that bed. She didn't let the trauma define her. She fought. She went to therapy, intensive therapy, EMDR, cognitive behavioral therapy, support groups, medication, whatever it took. And slowly, painfully, impossibly slowly, she started to heal. Not fully, never fully, but enough. Enough to function. Enough to remember her mother without completely falling apart. Enough to turn her pain into purpose. In 2020, Madison founded Jennifer's Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to hotel safety, employee background check reform, and support for families affected by violent crime. She lobbied for legislation. She spoke at conferences. She worked with hotel chains to implement better policies. She turned her mother's death into a movement, into change, into something that might save someone else's mother, someone else's daughter. In an interview from 2022, Madison was asked about the last photo she took with her mother. That Instagram post at 2:47 p.m. The one with the caption, "Best week of my life with the best person I know." Madison said this, "I look at that photo every day, every single day, and I remember how happy we were in that moment, how perfect everything felt, how much I loved her, and how much she loved me. That's what I hold on to. Not the horror of what came after, but the love of what came before. Because that's what she would want. That's who she was. Love, not fear." Love Madison Hayes is 24 years old now. She's back in school, finishing her degree, still pre-med, still wants to be a nurse. Like her mother, she says it's her way of honoring Jennifer, of carrying on her legacy, of helping people the way her mother helped people. She'll never fully heal from what happened. She knows that. But she's living, she's fighting, she's surviving. And her mother would be so proud in November 2019, 5 months after Jennifer Hayes was murdered. The trial of Carlos Mendoza begins at the Quintana Roo State Court in Cancun. The courtroom is packed. Journalists, advocates, families of other victims. And in the front row, wearing a necklace with her mother's ashes inside, Madison Hayes. The prosecution's case was straightforward. Overwhelming evidence, video footage, DNA, confession. They didn't need to make it complicated. They just needed to present the facts. And the facts were damning. The defense tried to argue diminished capacity, claimed Carlos had a troubled childhood, abuse, neglect, mental health issues. They tried to paint him as a victim of circumstance, someone who snapped, who didn't mean for things to go so far. The prosecution wasn't having it. Day after day, the prosecution laid out their case. Security footage played on a massive screen. Carlos approaching room 214. Jennifer opening the door. The 17-minute gap. Carlos fleeing. The jury watched in silence. Some covered their mouths. Some cried. All of them looked at Carlos Mendoza with the same expression. Disgust. The DNA evidence came next. Forensic experts testified, showed charts, explained how Jennifer fought, how Carlos's DNA was everywhere. Under her nails, on her skin, in her blood. The defense tried to cross-examine, tried to poke holes, but there were no holes. Just facts. Cold, hard, irrefutable facts. The prosecution called 43 witnesses over 3 weeks. Hotel employees, police officers, forensic experts, medical examiners. Each one added another piece to the puzzle, another nail in Carlos's coffin. But there was one witness everyone was waiting for, one testimony that would make or break the emotional core of this case. Madison Hayes Madison took the stand on day 17 of the trial. She wore a blue dress, her mother's favorite color. She was sworn in. She sat down. She looked directly at Carlos Mendoza, and she didn't look away. Not once. For 45 minutes, Madison described that day. Finding her mother, the locked door, the sounds, the aftermath. Her voice shook. She cried, but she didn't stop. She made the jury understand what was taken from her, what Carlos Mendoza had stolen. Not just her mother's life, but her own sense of safety, her trust, her innocence, her future. The prosecution asked Madison one final question. What do you want people to know about your mother? Madison paused, wiped her eyes, and said this. My mother was kind. She was selfless. She spent her whole life taking care of people. Sick people, dying people, people at their worst. And she never complained. She never gave up on anyone. She believed in second chances, in redemption, in forgiveness. But she never got a second chance. Because Carlos Mendoza took that from her. He took everything from her. And from me. And I want people to know that she didn't deserve what happened to her. No one deserves that. No one in the defense chose not to cross-examine Madison Hayes. What could they possibly say? After 3 weeks of testimony, the case went to the jury. 12 jurors, 7 women, 5 men. They deliberated for 3 hours and 14 minutes. By Mexican standards, that's fast. By any standard, that's telling. At 4:47 p.m. on December 6th, 2019, the jury sent word they'd reached a verdict. The courtroom filled. Madison took her seat. Carlos was brought in, shackled, emotionless. The judge asked the foreman to stand on the charge of murder in the first degree. How do you find the defendant? The foreman didn't hesitate. Guilty. The courtroom erupted. Cheers, sobs, shouts. The judge called for order. But it took minutes. Because this was more than a verdict. This was validation, justice, proof that Jennifer Hayes' life mattered, that her death wouldn't be forgotten, that her killer would pay. Guilty on all counts. First-degree murder, sexual assault, evidence tampering. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Carlos showed no reaction, just stared straight ahead, like he wasn't even there, like none of this was real. But it was real, and it was about to get worse. Sentencing was held 2 weeks later. December 20th, 2019. The prosecution requested the maximum penalty under Mexican law. Life imprisonment. No possibility of parole. The defense asked for leniency. Cited Carlos's confession, his cooperation, his remorse. The judge listened, reviewed the case, reviewed the evidence, reviewed the law, and then he looked at Carlos Mendoza and said something that silenced the entire courtroom. Mr. Mendoza, you have been found guilty of one of the most heinous crimes this court has seen. You violated the trust placed in you by your employer, by the victim, and by society. You took the life of an innocent woman who did nothing but open a door in a place where she should have felt safe. You showed no remorse, no empathy, no humanity. The court hereby sentences you to 60 years in prison without the possibility of parole. You will spend the rest of your natural life behind bars. And that, Mr. Mendoza, is just as 60 years. In Mexico, that's effectively a life sentence. Carlos Mendoza was 29 years old at sentencing. He'll be 89 if he survives. He'll die in prison. And for many people in that courtroom, that still didn't feel like enough before Carlos was taken away, the judge allowed victim impact statements. Jennifer's sister spoke. Her brother. her best friend from the hospital, and finally, Madison. She stood at the podium, looked at Carlos one last time, and said something that would stay with everyone in that courtroom. Reading Madison's words, "You took my mother from me. You took my best friend. You took my future. Every milestone I'll ever have, graduation, wedding, kids, she won't be there. Because of you. I hate you for that. I'll always hate you for that. But I'm not going to let you take anything else from me. Not my joy. Not my peace. Not my life. My mother taught me to be strong, to fight, to survive. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to live. For both of us. And you? You're going to rot in a cell. Forgotten. Alone. The way you left my mother. And that's exactly what you deserve." Carlos Mendoza was escorted out of the courtroom at 11:32 a.m. on December 20th, 2019. He will be transferred to a maximum security prison in central Mexico within hours. As he was led through the hallway, a reporter shouted a question. "Do you have anything to say to the Hayes family?" Carlos stopped for just a moment, looked back, and said nothing, absolutely nothing, because there was nothing he could say, nothing that would matter, nothing that would change what he'd done. He turned and walked through the door, and that was the last time Madison Hayes ever saw him. The criminal trial was over. But the fight for accountability wasn't. In January 2020, Madison Hayes and her family's wrongful death lawsuit against the Sunset Paradise Resort went to settlement negotiations. The hotel knew they'd lose if it went to trial. The evidence of negligence was too strong. The public sentiment was too overwhelming. Their reputation was already destroyed. So they settled. The settlement amount was sealed by the court, but legal experts estimate it was in the range of $5 to $8 million. The majority went to Madison, some to Jennifer's siblings, some to establish the Jennifer Hayes Memorial Scholarship at Ohio State's nursing program. Madison didn't want the money. She said so publicly, said no amount could replace her mother. But she took it anyway, because she knew she could use it to create change, use it to honor her mother's memory in a way that mattered. The Sunset Paradise Resort never recovered from the scandal. Bookings plummeted. Reviews tanked. Within 6 months, the parent company sold the property. New ownership, complete rebrand, different name, new management from top to bottom, every employee background check redone, new policies, new training, new security measures. But the damage was done. Locals in Cancun still know which hotel it was. Tourists avoid it. The ghost of Jennifer Hayes haunts that property, and it always will, but Madison wanted more than just one hotel held accountable. She wanted systemic change. In 2021, she partnered with a U.S. Congresswoman to introduce federal legislation nicknamed Jennifer's Law. The bill would require any hotel or resort receiving American tourists to meet specific safety standards. Mandatory background checks for all staff with room access. Third-party verification. Real-time complaint tracking. A centralized database, so problem employees can't just hop from property to property. The bill is still working its way through Congress. It faces opposition from the hotel industry. But Madison hasn't given up. She testifies. She lobbies. She fights. Because that's what her mother would do today. Madison Hayes is 24 years old. She graduated from Ohio State in 2023 with a degree in nursing. Just like her mother, she works at the same hospital where Jennifer worked. Riverside Methodist. She walks the same halls, wears the same scrubs, helps the same kinds of patients. Her colleagues say she has her mother's bedside manner, her kindness, her strength, her refusal to give up on people. She still thinks about that vacation every day, still has nightmares sometimes, still can't stay in hotels without intense anxiety. But she's healing, slowly, on her own terms. She's in therapy. She has a support system. She has purpose. And she has her mother's memory. Not the horror of how she died, but the beauty of how she lived. In a recent interview, Madison said something that perfectly captures her journey. She said, "My mom saved lives for 22 years. That was her calling, her gift. And even though she's gone, she's still saving lives. Because the changes that came from her death, the policies, the laws, the awareness, they're preventing other families from going through what I went through. That's her legacy. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure people remember that." I travel a lot for this channel. Hotels, Airbnbs, hostels. I've stayed in hundreds of them. And I'll be honest, this case changed how I approach every single stay. I check locks. I verify staff before opening doors. I share my location with family. I trust my instincts. Because Jennifer Hayes did everything right. She was cautious. She was smart. She was careful. And it still wasn't enough. Because the system failed her. The hotel failed her. And that's something we all need to remember. Safety isn't just personal responsibility. It's institutional responsibility. And when institutions fail, people die. Jennifer Hayes opened her hotel room door at 2:51 p.m. on June 18, 2019. She trusted the person on the other side. 20 minutes later, she was dead. Her daughter found her. Her daughter buried her. Her daughter now carries her memory and her mission forward every single day. But Jennifer's story isn't just about tragedy. It's not just about violence and loss and systemic failure. It's also about a daughter's unbreakable strength. It's about a mother's lasting legacy. It's about people refusing to stay silent when institutions try to hide the truth. It's about change, real change, the kind that saves lives. Jennifer Hayes was 43 years old, a nurse, a mother, a fighter, and she deserved so much better than what happened to her. We all do. If you think hotels need stricter safety protocols, stronger background checks, better accountability, real consequences for negligence, drop a comment below. Your voice matters. Hit that subscribe button right now.